Alright, well, I've been a bit slow lately with a move and finishing that DCEU video I've been working on for a long time, but I figure it's high time to hop back into the swing of things by concluding my retrospective series on the Star Wars Thrawn book trilogy. We already talked much about the development of this trilogy during my previous Thrawn Trilogy retrospective, so sadly I don't have much to add to this segment, except that much like Dark Force Rising, The Last Command came out about a year after the previous installment and concludes the plotline set up in the previous books in this series. The story takes place 9 ABY, and following the events of Dark Force Rising, Thrawn is a much greater threat, with him having successfully stolen a large portion of the fabled Katana fleet. Add to this growing rumblings that Thrawn has begun creating a clone army at an alarming rate, much faster than pre-Empire Clone Wars. And to top it off, Sabaoth is again on the Chimera, with Thrawn making the New Republic situation pretty dire. Mara Jade is now on Coruscant, recovering from her near-fatal run-in with the Imperials during the Katana Fleet battle of the last book. Mara is, of course, still skeptical of Luke and the Republic as a whole, so she seeks to escape. Luke, on the other hand, is attacked by the Chimera and after an escape needs to go to Honger for protection and to refuel, which the Nogri graciously do, though it will take time for him to repair his ship. While Luke is there, Leia finally has her twins the books have been teasing since the start, though it doesn't take long for Sabaoth to want the infants, forcing Thrawn to send in an attack team with hopes of kidnapping Leia and the newly born Jayana and Jacen solo. Mara manages to thwart the plot with the help of Lando Calrissian, whose newest venture went up in smoke due to Thrawn's meddling, and Luke finally returns. Mara claims she knows the clone facility may be on the planet Wayland, where the Emperor kept many of his belongings throughout the years, so Luke, Han, Mara, Lando, Chewie, C-3PO, and R2 head off to Wayland in hopes to destroy the cloning facility. Meanwhile, Card is trying to get the smugglers on the side of the New Republic, understanding that they would be a good resource to the Republic, and they would be paid well, on top of the fact that the Empire will inevitably run out of uses for the smugglers and dispatch of them. Though, Thrawn has an agent inside, Farrier, who causes issues for the group before they figure out who the spy was. Meanwhile, when the ground team lands on Wayland, Thrawn leads a bold attack on Coruscant that was nearly a disaster, if not for General Bail Iblis, though Thrawn leaves meteors around the planet as a way to make space travel dangerous around Coruscant. Eventually, Card catches wind of Mara being on Coruscant and heads there, only to find she's gone. In the meantime, Sabaoth heads to Wayland to confront Luke and Mara, and hopefully also bring them into his cult of the Force. Card and Leia decide to head to Wayland as they sense the Empire could show up there any time, though by the time they arrive, the whole place is in chaos. The giant cloning facility is locked down, with Chewie and Lando running around trying to blow it up, and Luke and Mara facing Sabaoth and his newest apprentice, a replica clone of Luke with a deranged mind, brandishing Luke's lightsaber that was lost on Cloud City during Luke's duel with Darth Vader. Card, Han, and Leia join the battle with Sabaoth, while Lando and Chewie set the base to blow up. Eventually, Mara kills the clone Luke and frees her from her curse of vengeance on Luke Skywalker the Emperor placed on her during his dying moments. Mara then kills Sabaoth as well. Lando and Chewie end up heading back to Card's ship, and the crew of the Wild Card save the people battling Sabaoth. During all this, however, the New Republic was in a fierce battle with the Empire, and with help of Rogue Squadron and the lack of help from Sabaoth to use his Force ability to influence the space battle, the Republic eventually emerges victorious over Thrawn and his crew. Thrawn and his assistant Pelion aren't in the clear though, as this victory emboldened the Nogri to finally attack, with Thrawn's bodyguard Nogri Ruth cutting him down. Pelion survives, but in panic, knows the Empire needs to hide and lick its wounds after this massive failure. Mara and Luke end up creating something of a new friendship throughout the novel, and the novel closes with Luke inviting Mara to join the New Republic as kind of an ambassador to her former smuggler allies such as Talon Card. As the novel ends, she's gifted Luke's old lightsaber, claiming that she would need it to continue her journey into the Force with Luke. The Last Command does the most to actually put the lead characters together concisely and really does a solid job tying up loose ends from the rest of the trilogy. Luke's primary goal is to keep his sister's twins safe, but also to stop Thrawn from creating an unbeatable army of clones. On top of that, he wants to see if he can help sway Mara Jade towards the light side, knowing her past as the Emperor's hands, a Force-sensitive assassin. On top of that, his road is a bit more dangerous, knowing that Sabayoth is still out there, and now after him, his sister and her twins. Luke quickly heads the mission on Wayland, knowing that its destruction will lead to a safer place in the galaxy, though he also has an alternative motive of potentially being able to better understand Mara, her time as the Emperor's hand, and see if she can be swayed to join the path of the light side. When Luke confronts Sabayoth, he's also confronted by his clone, which makes him come to the realization that much like the Emperor, Sabayoth doesn't have much good left in him and can't be swayed back to the side of the light, the way his father was in Return of the Jedi. This all feels very accurate and tracks well with the Luke we knew from the films, even going so far as to be reluctant to kill Sabayoth or his evil clone. Leia wants to protect Coruscant, especially in the wake of Thrawn's attack, and also considering that she and Han now have newborn and potentially powerful Force-sensitive twins. Leia is able to tap into the Force more than she could in previous novels now, and uses her skills to protect her twins when the team of commandos are sent by Thrawn and Sabayoth, and when Coruscant is later attacked in the novel. At the end, she risks it all to save her family, and also attends the throne battle against Sabayoth along with Talon Karrde. I think it's interesting adding this maternal energy to Leia, and it fits with the character that was set up in the films, I think. She has a hard time kind of balancing the life of her kids and her responsibilities with the New Republic, and trying to kind of find a middle ground that allows her to protect both. She also opens up and is more willing to go off the book, since Thrawn has proved time and time again to be unbeatable when strictly following protocol, proving she needed to get a little more rebellious as she had been during the Galactic Civil War earlier on. Mara is happy to be alive after the near-death experience during the battle for the Katana fleet at the end of the previous novel. Leia and Luke kind of pry at the true reason behind her hatred of Luke, and eventually she has to contest that it was in part the haunting and powerful presence of the Emperor that leads her to want to kill him, as she's had opportunities to do so but always decided against it for one reason or another. We also see Mara start to follow her path into the Jedi arts, dueling with Luke, the clone of Luke Skywalker, Sabayoth, and even training with Luke on Wayland to try to hone her long-suppressed powers and bring herself closer to the light side. Han Solo, a fresh new dad, is again pulled away from Leia to go on a mission to Wayland with Luke to finally end the reign of Thrawn once and for all. Han now lacks the reluctance he once did. In marrying Leia, he became an agent of the New Republic, whether he likes to admit it or not, though his old smuggler intuition, along with playing outside of traditional rank in the rebellion, makes Han able to do stuff he wasn't able to do previously, like slip away with Mara Jade, who is technically a prisoner of the Republic, until the Republic decides what they want to do with her due to her past with the Emperor. Lando finally makes it back to starting his mining operation anew. However, the Empire once again topples his plans and wrecks his operation. This again puts Lando back in the fold, helping to protect the twins and to later help with the Wayland operation. It's nice to see him here, but he doesn't have a lot going on. Chewie doesn't have a ton going on either, though he does have some turmoil. He too was tasked with helping on the away mission to Wayland, but he's conflicted since part of his Wookiee life debt that has tied him to Han Solo for so long also ties him to his wife Leia and their kin. Thus, when he's asked to leave Leia and the children, he was not initially pleased, though Leia had enlisted a small commando squad of Nogri to defend her while her husband and Chewie were away, a few of the Nogri also helping on the mission to Wayland, which made him a little more at ease due to the fact that the Nogri people have protected Leia in the past. Talon Karrde is less attached to the main story than previous entries, though Zahn loves this character, so he does return, this time working on something of a smuggler's cartel that would work in tandem with the Republic. Of course, there was a traitor in their midst, and at one point, it was speculated to be Karrde before it was shown to be Farrier, a smuggler who worked with Thrawn, up until Karrde unraveled his plot. He is also concerned about Mara, his former assistant, though it's not till late in the story that he manages to find some time to meet up with Leia about her whereabouts and eventually escort her to Wayland on a rescue mission for the endangered group, and of course Mara. Mon Mothma and Bail Iblis stories are again intertwined, this time with Mon Mothma and Iblis having to put their long-standing, quiet, and passive feud to the side for the good of the Republic. During Thrawn's bold attack on Coruscant, Bail was initially powerless to lead, watching from the sidelines, but Mon Mothma ultimately had to relent, and the two needed to swallow their pride and put their feud from the early days of the rebellion on the back burner to save the Republic, through both military and political prowess, rather than just one or the other. Thrawn returns, now more formidable than ever, with him menacing the Republic with his newly emboldened fleet, following the capture of the Katana fleet, which is now staffed through an army of clones that Thrawn is able to make incredibly quickly. Though Thrawn now has to contend with Sabaoth, who has been more emboldened and is becoming impatient with his lack of progress on getting the Force minions to work under his guide. Thrawn manages some victories and is cunning as ever, but seems to always fail to land a killing blow until the end of the story, following the death of Sabaoth, whose Force power helped the Imperial fleet's cunning caused Thrawn's troops to lose its grip when facing the New Republic and Rogue Squadron. Ultimately, Thrawn is killed by his own Noghri bodyguard, who has been aware of the Empire's deceits on his home planet that was discovered during the events of Dark Force Rising. Pelion, now totally gutted without his leader and frankly unfit to be a leader on Thrawn's scale, had to retreat so the Empire could try to rebuild following the massive losses. Sabaoth begins growing impatient with Thrawn's lack of results in delivering him Force-sensitive minions, and has only grown more crazed since the previous defeat at the hand of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade in the previous novel. Learning of the cloning facility, however, he creates Luke Skywalker, a genetic clone of Luke that lacks free will, and can either ascend to be his partner, or can be the push Luke needs to send him to the dark side. Ultimately, the combined force of the Falcon crew, Talon Karrde, and Mara Jade proved to be too much, with Mara ultimately killing the Dark Jedi and ending the clone's evil reign once and for all, the domino effect which gave the rebels the upper hand over Thrawn's fleet of clones. Tonally, this book feels in line with the OT, but perhaps has some flares of its own thing. Luke and Mara are more resigned with the fact that Sabaoth will not be swayed to the light. The Noghri have quietly joined the New Republic, and the birth of the Solo twins is another bright spot. However, Thrawn seems to be more bold and cunning than ever, and it really is only the overconfidence of both Sabaoth and Thrawn that lead to their undoing. Much like Return of the Jedi, there's a lot of hope, but also a sense of lingering dread that our heroes could face death at any moment. And that Luke clone twist, despite me knowing about it through the zeitgeist and the novel alluding to it, was also fairly crazy and fun. Overall, I'd liken it most to Return of the Jedi, but it's also slightly unique and has its own design to it. As always, Zahn did a good job balancing political intrigue, character development, and action into one concise package, worthy of comparison to the work he's expanding upon. I also feel the book did a good job meticulously closing off even side plot threads like Thrawn's elusive Delta source that was leaking the New Republic information to him. The answer was trees. Perhaps not a great example, because that one was a bit weird, but Zahn also writes the most ludicrous ideas he comes up with enough grace that you don't question it, like, oh yeah, why not? Thrawn had psychic trees that showed him Morse code or something that told him what the rebels were planning? Sure, why not? Overall, a solid conclusion to the amazing trilogy of Star Wars novels. I had more time to actually listen to the novels lately due to my new job, so I have a lot of Star Wars EU stuff coming up. I think the Thrawn Trilogy, over many comparable stories, tend to feel more like an expansion to the films, another trilogy never brought to film, and a natural continuation than the more lore-heavy novels. I have listened to a few like Shadows of the Sith, which is a modern-day Disney novel with Lando and Luke, and yeah, I think that one's okay and answers some questions and expands a lot on plot points, but it's not really a story that expands the Star Wars narrative in the way something like the Thrawn Trilogy does, which in some ways feels like the EU's attempt at making a true sequel trilogy to Star Wars following its conclusion in Return of the Jedi. I also think the legacy of this trilogy reflects that, with Disney trying to take characters and notes from this widely loved classic of Star Wars expansion for their own expansions of Star Wars. For example, we have Thrawn in the universe now, and even the recently released Star Wars Outlaws is supposed to get a DLC pack soon after launch called the Wild Card, which I assume may feature the crew of the Wild Card from this series. I also wouldn't be surprised if Star Wars tried to bring Mara Jade one way or another into the fold down the line. Overall, a solid trilogy, and really the birthplace of the modern cycle of Star Wars novels us turbo nerds get to enjoy to this day. I'm really behind on videos right now due to production on my DCEU video. but I have a ton in the works, and I've started writing videos for my next 8 Star Wars novels. I said I have way too much time to listen to novels at work, but there's a lot of good stuff ahead. Just to let you guys know what's coming up next, my next Star Wars novel will be Shatterpoint, a Mace Windu novel, and my next trilogy is the Darth Bane trilogy, both of which I have started writing since I finished listening to them a while ago. I will note that Star Wars novels won't be my exclusive focus, however, as my next video will be Batman Arkham City. Lots of stuff ahead, and now that I've finished my move and I'm done with my DCEU project, we're rolling ahead again full speed.